Hi everyone, I'm LJ and I am the Communications Intern at Kids Club Kampala. Today I will be interviewing Kids Club Kampala's CEO, Olivia Barker-White, and discussing what it is to be a woman in the third sector in celebration of International Women's Day. We will be talking about ways in which we can break the bias and how Kids Club Kampala can be part of this change. As a charity with a female CEO and projects which focus on empowering individuals and promoting inclusion, we want to celebrate this important day and do all that we can to break the bias. Hi Olivia, thank you for joining us and agreeing to talk about your experience as a woman in the sector and how you're working to break the bias. So the first question that we have for you is, what does breaking the bias mean to you?
I suppose that breaking the bias means to me is just making sure that in all workplaces, in all environments, in all situations, across the world, that somebody's gender, someone's race, someone's sexual orientation, their age, their ability should not impact the opportunities that they have for pay, for promotion, for jobs that they want to do, for things they want to achieve in their career, that it should not be due to any of those factors that I've just listed, that should not be discriminated against for any of those reasons, that everybody should have equal opportunity, and that bias should not come into play, particularly in the workplace, but I would say across different areas as well, within sport, politics, entertainment, etc. That breaking the bias, and this International Women's Day campaign is working towards that equality, particularly for women, but I'd say it needs to be across all sectors of society, and any group that is marginalized, whether that's they're a particular ethnic minority or sexual orientation or whatever they may be, that there is no bias that would impact the opportunity that somebody has in life, and that everybody should have the opportunity to achieve their goals, or to at least explore their goals and try and work towards what they want to do in their life without having any of these biases. And I would say the same as well for not just obvious characteristics that people have, whether they're gender or race, etc., but also where they're born, what their income is, what their household situation is. We work with so many amazing children and families and women and men in Uganda, and the reality is they just don't have the same opportunities that we have in this country. Even if we experience some sort of discrimination and bias in this country, they have it so much worse, just because of the luck of the dice of where they were born and what their economic situation is. So I know that's a very long answer to your question, but I think it's really, really important, and this campaign is really important to try to break the bias wherever we can.
Yeah, definitely. So you were only 18 when you first went to Uganda and set up the first Kids Club. What inspired you to start the charity and to take action?
So for me, it was never part of my plan to set up a charity. I never sort of had this goal or dream in mind to set up a charity, to found an organisation, and to still be doing it however many years later. That was never really part of my plan. For me, it simply came from being in Uganda, experiencing what people were living like, the situations that people were going through. It was seeing the conditions that children were living in the slums, and just really having that heart of compassion and feeling like these people deserve better, and maybe I can do something to help make a difference. And also doing that in partnership with some amazing friends who I met in Uganda then. So I'm one of the founders. There are three of us who co-founded the organisation. Corrie, who is now based in Ireland, and she works as our grants manager, and Sam, who is Ugandan, and he heads up our Ugandan organisation there, and he manages all of the staff team there and the programmes, and does all of the real work, and it was never sort of I had an idea that I want to start a charity, and I'm just going to go into this community and set something up. It was really done in partnership with our team in Uganda, and particularly with Sam, meeting him and meeting some other friends, and having that shared vision of dreaming for a better future for these children, and also speaking to the children and just hearing their stories and hearing what their dreams were. You know, they wanted to go to school, and they wanted to just really simple things like having paper and pens to do some drawing, and having a pair of shoes, and just listening to what these children wanted and these communities wanted for them, and seeing maybe there's something here that we can do to help. It certainly didn't happen overnight. And another sort of big aspects that sort of led me to founding the charity was that upon returning from Uganda, so I first went there for about, when I was 18, for about 7 months. Upon returning to the UK, I had this heart and this passion for these children, desperately wanted to make a difference. But the plan was never to start a charity. I came back to the UK and I spoke to lots of organisations, other charities I knew, other churches I knew. I sent lots of emails to different charities and organisations, kind of saying, there are these children and they live in the slums in Kampala, and the situations are so desperate. Please, can you help them? You are doing some great work. Please, can you help them? And at the time, there was and there still is now, there was quite a lot of social stigma around slum communities. That has slightly changed now, but that is still a problem. But honestly, I really believe that the reason I didn't get a response to these emails is because I was an 18-year-old girl. I really do believe that's why. And I just felt, well, if all of these organisations have either said no, or haven't responded, or have, you know, laughed in my face, as it did happen sometimes, actually I can't leave these children here. And Sam and the rest of my friends in Uganda, we felt we can't just leave these people the way they are. They are desperate to make a change in their own life. How can we empower them to get out of their situations of poverty? How can we love them? And if all of these doors are being closed, then as a last resort, really, as the only other option, maybe we should start something. And so Sam and the team in Uganda, they started running the kids clubs. They started going into the slums, and some of our team and volunteers actually lived in the slums and were part of that community themselves. We started playing games with the children, feeding them, just loving them, and then that developed to providing education for them and rescuing them from situations of abuse and all sorts of things that we do now. And then myself and Corrie in the UK, we then got on with the really exciting stuff of registering as a charity and setting up a bank account and, you know, doing fundraising and all that kind of thing to try and make a difference. So yeah, it wasn't me as a white saviour going into Uganda to make a difference. It was really just meeting these people, trying to do something to help them, but feeling like actually all the other doors were closed, and our sort of our only option really was to do something ourselves. At the time, there weren't many, if any, other NGOs or organisations working in the slum communities in Kampala. That is slightly different now, but at the time there wasn't, and we just felt this is so unjust. You know, how can these people be living in these desperate situations and no one there to help them? And yeah, I'm also a Christian, and I pray to God, and I really, you know, felt that actually that was something that I was being called to do and to make a difference in that area.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. I think it's amazing. Okay, so you're now CEO of Kids Club Kampala. What challenges have you faced as a female CEO?
Lots of challenges. As I said at the beginning, it was definitely difficult getting taken seriously as a young girl trying to set something up. I think it's fundraising is always a challenge. And we as an organisation, we do lots of different fundraising, and some areas I feel like we're very strong in fundraising, and some areas we aren't. So we do lots of events. We've got lots of you know, churches and communities who do fundraising for us. and we do big balls, and we do we have lots of people who sort of donate online, and that's amazing. But one area that we haven't really had a huge amount of success or managed to do much fundraising from is corporate companies. And I do think in the corporate world it's slightly different to the charity world, and I do think a lot of the time in the corporate world it does tend to be those corporate boards and those corporate CEOs which are very male dominated, and often it is who you know, and I'm not particularly well networked with board members of big companies, and often it's the charities that get the support from that area, the ones that kind of either know them already and have a contact, or just look and sound and think very similar to those people. So I think that's definitely been a challenge in terms of how we fundraise, and particularly as we're looking to grow. I think that's a great way that we can increase our income and fundraise more to have more impact by partnering more with companies. But that's something we found quite challenging, and I do think that is to do with being a female. I do think in terms of other challenges, I've had 2 children myself, and I do think I certainly felt when I went on maternity leave with my first child, I certainly felt quite a lot of pressure to return to work immediately and to not really take a maternity leave. And even just a few weeks or a few days after giving birth, feeling that pressure to be back on emails and to be back working and to not be able to sort of take any time off. And to be honest, that did have quite a detrimental impact on my kind of own well-being and mental health, but also on the organisation as a whole. And sort of, we've grown a lot in the last few years, but certainly when I went on maternity leave with my first, and I came back very soon after that, I don't feel like I was in a fantastic place, and I do think that had a bit of an impact on some of our other staff and team and things like that. And to be honest, sort of the year following that was actually quite a low point for me, and I found it really challenging. And it sort of all came to a head sort of end of 2019, beginning of 2020, and I really got to a point where I kind of thought, do I want to do this anymore? It's so hard being a CEO, it's so hard being a female CEO and trying to juggle having a family. And it really took me back to that point of thinking, questioning, is this what I want to do? Is this what I want to do with my life? And I took some time away and reflected. I went on a fantastic leadership program, which was residential, away for a week. I just really took that time to reflect on actually, what am I doing? And I really came to the conclusion during that time of, this is what I believe I'm called to do. This is what I believe I can do to make a difference. And regardless of all of the fundraising and the policies and all the staffing and all those things, actually, if we strip it all back to the core things, I believe these children in Uganda deserve a better future, and I believe that I can be part of making that happen. And I believe that Kids Club Kampala is a fantastic place, organisation to have an impact, and I believe that this is what we need to do. And so after that, I came back to work and I was like, okay, this is who we are. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to move everything forward. And these are our core values and our core beliefs. And just a few weeks after that, COVID hit. Just a few weeks after that, the COVID pandemic hit, and everything was obviously completely changed upside down. But I honestly believe if I hadn't been through that challenging time, if I hadn't had that sort of really low period where I almost had to reassess, what are our values, who are we, who am I feel like if I hadn't had that and then COVID had come, we would have been completely rocked. We would have not have known what we were doing. But actually, because we'd gone through that challenge, I feel like it made me strong, but it made us stronger as an organisation. And when COVID hit, we were able to say, okay, we know who we are, we know what our values are, we know what we are here to do. And in this really difficult time of COVID, actually, we are helping these vulnerable children to survive and to thrive, and we are going to do whatever we can to help them get through that. And that is what we have done. And it's been, incredible how many hundreds and thousands of people we've been able to support through the last 2 years, through the pandemic. But I feel, you know, if you don't have those challenges sometimes, then when bigger challenges come, you haven't built that resilience. And also, I've just literally just this week returned from maternity leave from my second child. And again, it's sort of learning from those challenges that have gone before. And I've been so blessed that I've been able to have almost a year off. And we've had a fantastic interim CEO in the process. We've brought on new staff in Uganda and in the UK as well. And I feel like Kids Club Kampala is in a really great place. But again, it's going through those challenging things to get you there. I'm not sure if that's completely answered the question, but
yeah, no, it's amazing. Yeah. So how do you think that we can ensure equality within the charity sector for the future, from your own experiences in the past?
I really think to ensure equality in the charity sector, I really think representation matters. And I think particularly for senior leadership positions, I think if you don't see anyone that looks and sounds like you in a senior leadership position, then you're not going to have any confidence or self-belief really to try and get yourself into that position. And I really believe that representation matters. A few years ago, probably maybe 5 or 6 years ago now, we realised that we were at a point where all of our staff team were female, but the vast majority of our board of trustees were male, white male. And we realised that actually this is not okay. This is actually not good. And we actually put a policy in place that at no point would we want to have more than 50% of the board male. So we actively put a policy in place to have more than 50% of the board as female, to try and rectify that. And now we've got 2/3 of the boards are female. But it's not just, you know, a tokenistic thing. It's not just, oh, we'll put some women in, so we've ticked that box, we've got, you know, equality. You know, our vice chairs are female, our treasurers are female. It's not just, you know, putting people in those positions, but it's actually giving them decision-making powers. It's actually giving them influence. It's actually, you know, giving them a voice as well. So I really believe that representation matters. It's making sure that it's having women in those senior positions, whether that's management, trustees, at whatever level in companies, on, you know, on boards. And I know we're talking about women in particular, but I believe that is true across all sectors. So, you know, in terms of race, we're actively trying to diversify our boards and our staff team in things like LGBT, ethnic minorities, ability, you know, in all different areas. Representation matters, but as I said, it's not just about putting someone in that position as a box ticking exercise. It's actually listening to them and giving them a voice and giving them opportunities and things. So I think that's a really good way to ensure equality. And I also think just talking about it is really important. I'm really privileged to be part of a couple of sort of women in leadership networking groups, and that's really great to sort of be inspired and inspire others, and to kind of hear people's stories and sort of see other inspiring women. So I think in surrounding yourself with other women, and I've had the privilege of mentoring a couple of other women sort of who are getting into sort of more senior management within the international development sector, and yeah, it's just trying to do whatever we can to ensure equality.
Yeah. And what projects within Kids Club Kampala stand out to you as a force for the change when it comes to breaking the bias?
So many. It's not a project, but firstly, we have got some incredible women on our staff team in Uganda and in senior management positions as well. And actually, that thing I said about the board of trustees in the UK, that is the same for Uganda as well. So 50% of our board in Uganda are female as well. And so we have got some fantastic women on our staff team. They are just amazing, real powerhouses of women who are making a real difference. In terms of projects, there's so many, but the one that really stands out to me is our skilling projects. So these projects, we used to call them our women's projects, but we don't call them women's projects anymore because men are also invited to join, although even though it is the vast majority of participants are women. We teach vocational training skills. So we teach carpentry, tailoring, knitting, hairdressing, craft making, jewellery making, etc. We teach vocational skills, and then we help people to set up their own businesses. And the women in particular, there are some men as well, but we're talking about women today. The women in particular who come through these programs are just so inspiring. You know, these women, they work so hard to do whatever they can to provide for their families, to get their children into school, to find food for their families. These women are so entrepreneurial and they are so motivated to help their families. All we're doing really is just giving them a bit of a hand up. That's literally all we're doing. We're just providing them with a bit of training, a bit of a skill. In some cases, we're giving them startup materials to start their own business, of a sewing machine or you know, hairdressing implements or whatever it is. We're giving them startup tools to start their own business, and then they just really run with it. And the way it works as well is the women, we sort of organise them into groups so they can maybe work as a group in a community together. Maybe they live near each other, their neighbours. They'll have a sewing machine to share, and then they will sort of run a business as a collective. And it's just really inspiring. One of the things that I love the most about my job, which sadly I haven't been able to do for over 2 years, is go to Uganda and to visit people and to hear the stories. And particularly when going regularly, you can, you know, following up and seeing people's journeys. And I love visiting our women's groups. There's one group in particular a few years ago who went on our knitting training course, and sort of it's not how we would think of knitting here. They have big industrial machines and they kind of knit school jumpers and things like that. So it's not like we think of knitting here. It's a proper business. And a group of women from Islam, they went on this course, and they started a group in their community doing knitting. And they managed to get a couple of contracts with some local schools about making jumpers. And they did so well that they then reinvested the profits to getting a better and a bigger machine. And then they did it even well and got more contracts to make more jumpers and sold more. But they then got another machine between them to do embroidery, so they could do like badges and things. They then kind of outgrew where they were in the community doing this, so they started to rent a little shop. So above the shop is kind of their workshop where they make them and then they sell them in the shop. And it is incredible to see these women just thriving. They are putting their children, paying for their children to go to school. They are then helping other women in the community to join their group and training them up. And it's just so inspiring to see them. And really all that we did is just help them do this initial training course that we were running. And it's just really amazing seeing what they are doing and how they are not just making a difference for themselves, but also helping the community as well. There's various other women as well who they've come on one of our training courses, they've started their own business, and once that started going quite well, they've decided they want to give back. And we've had quite a few women who've come through our skilling training programs who've then come on to be trained as a Kids Club Kampala volunteer. And we've got a few women who were really, really struggling, you know, to provide for their families and really desperate. They came onto our vocational training program. They got some skills. They started their own business, and they've now been trained as some of our volunteer safeguarding officers. So they are now not only running their own business, but they are within that community, looking out for other children, helping to address safeguarding concerns. We've even had a couple of women who started as volunteers and have now come on board as staff. It is just amazing seeing the determination and the resilience and also the difference that these projects are making.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear like the impact stories that can come from just the kickstart that they need, that Kids Club like provides. It's amazing to hear. So what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self at the start of your career, being a CEO and empowering other people?
I get asked this question quite a lot, and to be honest, I never really know. I never really know. I think I think the biggest advice I'd probably say is don't be afraid to ask for help. I feel like at the beginning I was quite concerned about being taken seriously, and as I shared earlier, it wasn't an easy process, it wasn't an easy journey. So I feel like I had developed quite a thick skin, which in a way that you need, but actually I feel like some challenges probably could have been avoided if I'd have just sort of said, I need a bit of help here, or we're struggling a bit in this area. Things are very different now. When I was 18, social media wasn't really a thing, and the world was not as connected, and I feel so old saying that, but it's true. I think if someone was starting out on a similar journey now, I'd say the best thing you can do is just get plugged into some networks. As I said, I'm part of a few networks, and I'm actually a trustee of Small International Development Charities Network, and there are some amazing people out there like myself who've kind of walked the journey, and it's kind of finding other organisations and seeing how you can learn from them, and not being afraid to ask for help. Every now and again I get people sort of getting in touch with me, asking for advice, and I love to do that. Even tomorrow actually I've got a Zoom call with someone who's sort of setting up a program and wants a bit of advice, and I love doing that to kind of I feel like I never really had that at the beginning, and so I love to kind of try and help other people with that. And I think as well, also looking at other women who've overcome stuff to achieve great things. I'm reading a book at the moment, and I can't remember what it's called, so I feel like I shouldn't have just mentioned it, but it's called something like The History of the World in 21 Great Women, or something like that. And I do feel that there's almost just there is a societal cultural thing that kind of says, as a woman you need to be in your place, and you shouldn't do this, and you shouldn't achieve this. So it's I've been trying to read books and learn about women that I hadn't even heard of before that did incredible things, and history often has erased these women, so it's finding things that inspire you and motivate you to keep going. And I like reading in general, but I like reading a lot of sort of biographies of amazing women, who've done great things. So I think it's looking for inspiration in that way as well.
Okay, so the last question I have for you is there a woman that has inspired you in your career?
I feel like this probably sounds a bit cheesy, but I feel like certainly in the beginning of my career, and certainly founding Kids Club Kampala, I'd say the person that probably inspired me the most was Corrie, my co-founder. So she now works as our grants and trust manager. I was so lucky that we were doing it together with Sam in Uganda as well. But I think certainly at the beginning when things were really hard, and both of us went through points of, not knowing where we were going or feeling like we wanted to give up, I think the fact that we kind of had each other, we kind of inspired each other to keep going and to keep motivated and keep going back to why are we doing what we're doing, look at the difference that we're making and look at the reason behind why we're doing this. So I feel like Corrie was a great sort of inspiration and influence for me, and still is now. Corrie is brilliant at always bringing it back to the individual children and the individual stories and kind of inspiring me in that way. Also, as I've said, the amazing women that we work with in Uganda, who are part of our women's group, some of our volunteers and some of our amazing staff team as well. They are so inspirational, just seeing their dedication. And here's little old me talking about, I've had to overcome this. It's like, actually, compared to what these people have had to overcome, it is nothing, and they are just incredible. So they're hugely inspiring as well.
Thank you. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with me. It was really insightful.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to our interview and celebrating International Women's Day with us. As a young woman who wants to go into the sector, it was really inspirational to hear Olivia, Corrie and Sam's journey in creating Kids Club Kampala. Keep an eye out for our International Women's Day campaign on our social media channels. You can find out more about our projects on our website. Happy International Women's Day!